Despite all the anger flowing from both sides of the political spectrum, we as Americans are lucky our arguments in this country are trivial in comparison to those in developing countries. Although some realize it and make fun of it with the Twitter hashtag First World Problems, the vast majority of the United States citizens do have no idea how truly lucky we are. So-called social justice warriors are concerned with checking the privileges of other Americans, making them look at themselves in a light that the less fortunate have. If these crusaders were to travel to the Philippines, what then would they say? It is hot and muggy as we get off the boat in Subic Bay, a large port city on the island of Luzon. After 3 days in a boat with various service members from all branches, it is good to get off the high sea and onto solid ground. The first thing I notice on the humid morning is the squalor of one of the Philippines' largest cities. The higher buildings near the harbor are dingy, decorated by plain, unadorned clothing from drying from a tangle of clotheslines. The sea air and cloud of secondhand smoke mix with an unfamiliar odor. It's a sort of smell that is a cross between old sneakers, unwashed children, and wet dog. It stings the nostrils and irritates the stomach. Fortunately for us, our commander orders a quick formation, sight count of bodies and material, and files us onto a relatively nicer air on hired buses. As the packed buses move out of the city, we see our first glimpse of poverty on the rural Filipino life. The mountains and volcanoes loom over the degraded and disgusting canneries, factories, and breweries on the outskirts of the city. As we ride down the road, the dingy, dirty sights of urban culture go away. In the internal parts of the country, agriculture reigns supreme. I stare out the window for at least an hour at the vast tracts of rice paddies and farmland as the vast tracts of rice paddies and farmland rise and fall gently in the pristine landscape. These people have little, so they can't ruin such a beautiful vista. It is then when I unwillingly spy the first of many reminders that we are lucky as Americans. While waiting at the side of the road, waiting on a few stragglers to finish their restroom stop, I spy a small shack. The danger is imminent, or so we think. Our battalion intelligence officer briefed us on the terror threat from many revolutionary groups in the area. At this moment, groups like More Islamic Liberation Front are at the back of my mind. In this dilapidated shack, no bigger than a small 20-seat classroom, I see a struggling family. This was no small start to a family. This appeared to be a large, multi-generational family. I could count 8 Filipinos and a water buffalo relaxing under their falling apart porch. How can all these people, human beings, live under such conditions? I start to fathom how truly lucky I am. The quiet moment of reflection soon comes to an end. My good friend Lance Corporal Robert Nevert, a Marine from near my hometown, comes over and tells me the buses are leaving. I board the now stagnant air in the bus. There is something about 40 or so soldiers and Marines who have not showered for 3 days on the ocean that brings you back to a grounded reality. My personal discovery would have to wait. There is business to attend to. Within the hour, we pulled up to a fence line. It is the beginning of the Clark Freeport Zone, home to the former Clark Air Force Base. In April of 1975, the United States government evacuated approximately 2,000 orphans from Vietnam and Cambodia. More than 1,500 orphans received initial medical evaluation and treatment at Clark Air Force Base. This month, we will be helping children again. We'll be providing medical care, setting up education facilities, and helping families get clean water. As we pull up to a 3-star hotel, all the officers, non-commissioned officers, and females get off the bus. The military did not see any sense in having a bunch of lower-ranking males mingling with the higher-ups or with supposedly fragile females. I would have to figure out where my friends and squad mates were staying. Upon entering my room, I threw down my gear, collapsing on the first bed I've laid on in over 96 hours. I could finally relax. As my roommate takes the first shower, I take the time to notice the artificial peacefulness. Here, in this safe place, you could almost imagine you are back in the United States at a Holiday Inn just outside of Corpus Christi or Des Moines. Not 3 miles away, there are starving children and rundown shanties, something that I had only seen on late-night commercials accompanied by a goat-laden Sarah McLachlan soundtrack. We finally get some liberty after a seemingly endless safety brief. I find out where my friend Rob is staying. I grab my little buddy and we hightail over to the shared villas. The whole 10-minute ride, we discuss how much better the weather on the tropical island is than back home in Akron. We arrive in a cul-de-sac, paid the cab fare, and found him. He is sitting on the couch watching a DVD on his laptop. The three of us decide that we would go to the mall and then go sightseeing. He goes to change out of his uniform, and I sit down to continue watching the movie. It's Gunna Din, an old black and white film based in India about a poor local boy who carried water to the troops deployed to the subcontinent. It seems appropriate enough, considering that we are foreign soldiers in a rundown Asian country. But we're here to train and educate the but here we are to train and educate the Filipino army in a massive combined arms exercise. After about 20 minutes, Rob finally returns with his Libo buddy, and we head toward the shops. During the ride, we discussed the movie, our personal favorite of Rob's. He mentions that he was a fan of the author Rudyard Kipling, and that the poem is one of his favorites. The S&M Mall is large, comparable to Summit Mall back home. We walk in and almost immediately start hunting for alcohol. In the poem, Kipling writes, "You may taco, gin, and beer when you're quartered safe out here." It seems as though nothing has changed in the military lifestyle since at least the 1800s. After we make our purchase of booze, we decide to walk around the mall a bit. There's every amenity you would find in an American mall. It is clean, a stark contrast to the squalor on the other side of the fence. Outside the fence line, there is a small bazaar. It is time to adventure. After leaving the wire, we start to wander around the local shops. Begging children are harassing us for money. Rob pays no mind to them, but my heart breaks for these kids. Filthy, shirtless, and skinny, it is clear they are in need. When is the last time you saw a street urchin in the United States? After perusing the shops for about an hour, we decide to leave. It is time to drink our treasure trove of Red Horse beer, Absolute vodka, and Jack Daniels. The ride home is somber, a reflection of our own personal discoveries at the small street fair. We may have gotten shirts, a butterfly knife, and cheap souvenirs. But is that what is important in life? The hard work and debauchery that follows for the next month becomes a routine. It is time to go home now. For Rob, that means back to his barracks room in Okinawa. For me, that means I hop on a plane and fly halfway across the world back to safe and secure Akron, Ohio. The physical journey is at an end, but the lessons learned is lifetime. I find myself back at work listening to people bicker about the most trivial things. If these people could only see that benching Peyton Manning in favor of Ben Roethlisberger in a fantasy football is a luxury argument that would amaze people in third world countries, it would be a miracle. Excuse me. Even to this day, I still think of those kids. Every time I sit down and prepare a meal after a long, stressful day, I know I am lucky to have food. Every time I judge driving 20 minutes to drop my daughter off at her grandparents', I know that we are lucky to be living in our own homes. Every time I sit down and write essays, I know that I am lucky to have education and electricity. To this day, I still no longer question the many blessings in my life. Instead, I revel in small matters in life. Those ragged, shirtless dins gave me exactly what I needed, summed up by Kipling. It was crawling and it stunk, but of all the drinks I've drunk, I'm grateful to the one from Ghana.